Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth. Today we're going to be setting up my June bullet journal with a Stand in the Rain theme, which is a playlist that was voted on by y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. For the color palette on this setup, we are going to go with just black, white, blue, and yellow to kind of go with the raincoat and jeans effect of the cover art from that particular playlist. I have everything sketched out and ready to go, and for the most part, this is actually going to be a pretty quick setup. In addition to our color palette, we do have some other supplies. I do have some stencils here. This square one I'm using just because it has sort of a small raindrop shape. I also have another stencil that has a little bit larger of a raindrop shape on it. And then I have one that has a little bit, a teeny tiny umbrella we're going to use just on this cover page right here. And then I also have a good old font stencil. I'm actually not going to trace the fonts on screen. I've done these in pencil and I'm just going to trace over them in pen now that the pencil is down on the paper. Save myself a little bit of time. I'm also giving the cover page a little bit of functionality this month, and I'm going to add my monthly to-do lists to this left side of the spread and then sort of have my cover page on the right side. So we're going to go ahead and get started with those to-do lists first. These are going to be super simple. The left column is going to be monthly to-dos, and I'm going to put those in blue. The right column are going to be my Dots and Beyond to-do list and my freelance to-do list, and I'm going to do those in yellow. Not only am I highlighting every other line in a lighter blue or a lighter yellow, I'm also going to punctuate each one of those with a dot marker. For the doodles in this setup, I am drawing a series of women that are in the rain. Some of them are standing in the rain with umbrellas, some of them are tiptoeing through the puddles. All of these came through Google searches, y'all. None of these are originals this month. I just didn't have it in me, so I am just recreating what I could find pretty quickly. And then I'm also not going to color everything in. So here I'm coloring in the June header, and on our little doodle, we're going to give her some yellow boots, and that's it. I'm not going to color anything else. Now I do have this blue Pigma Micron. I'm going to use it selectively throughout this setup. In this particular instance, we are going to use it for my lyrics. So this is still a music and lyrics annual theme, and I'm going to try to get some music lyrics on the page. I thought it would be fun if I wrote them vertically like they were the rain falling down. This is a very eclectic playlist, but I guess I was feeling my early 80s oats because the song I chose to put on this page is We Made It Through the Rain by Barry Manilow. We dreamers have our ways of facing rainy days, and somehow we survive. We keep the feelings warm, protect them from the storm until our time arrives. Then one day the sun appears and we come shining through those lonely years. I made it through the rain. And that's it, y'all. That's a fairly simple cover page for June 2023 with the Stand in the Rain playlist theme. I'm going to keep this simple setup and doodles all the way through this setup, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the calendar page. I am going to use essentially the same open calendar layout that I used for May, and starting in the exact same place, having the lines in the exact same place. If it's working for you, why change it, right? I started off with using a stencil to draw some little raindrops, which is where I will put my Monday through Sunday, and then putting in the horizontal lines for that calendar. When I call it an open grid, it's because I'm not going to do the vertical lines for the calendar. Each one of these spaces essentially still has 6 dot grid spaces by 6 dot grid spaces. We just don't have the vertical lines interrupting the eye. For the color on the page, I'm using this light yellow to highlight the top of each line for each week, and then I use the dark blue for the header and the light blue for the headers for the days of the week. Down the right side, I'm going to draw this doodle of a woman tiptoeing through a puddle. Now in this original sketch that I found on Google, this was a headless sort of artsy sketch, and I wanted her to have a head, so I did have to try to get one in here that looked proportionate and was looking the right direction. That's just one way that I changed up the doodle that I found online. I finished up the spread with a little pop of the brighter yellow on her shoes, as well as a little pop of yellow on the umbrella. Don't particularly love the faded out blue on the raindrops with the daily headers. I might darken those up later, but for now we're just going to go ahead and move on to the next page. Alright, this spread is going to be my mood tracker as well as my wellness trackers. Now for this month, I'm going back to a little more of a fun mood tracker where I color in something. For the wellness tracker, it's going to be the same that I set up for May, and we're going to peek back at May after I get this set up so that you can see how that works. My first step on this page is to trace in my headers. Now remember, I did use a stencil for these headers. I'm just choosing not to ink around the stencil, just going ahead and freehanding around those pencil marks I've already got traced in. But for fun and to fill in a little space, I decided to turn one of these L's in wellness into an umbrella. And then for the mood tracker, I thought it would be fun to color in some raindrops. And here I'm using that square stencil with that little raindrop shape on it again. This is a home stencil. It's meant for, like home projects, not actual journaling, but you use what you have, right? The top of my wellness tracker will be a line graph, and it has sleep, energy, and steps, which I gauge on a scale of 1 to 10. And then for my habits, I have move, stretch, my e-moods tracker, mind, which is mindfulness, and H2O or water. I do put the days of the month as well as the days in the middle, and then I do a dotted line for 0, a dotted line for 5, and a dotted line for 10. 0 to 10 scale is how I rank how much sleep I get, how many steps I take, and how much energy I have each day. And of course, I'm drawing another little doodle of a character standing in the rain. With everything inked in pen, it's just like filling in a little bit of a coloring book, and I really didn't plan any of this in advance, y'all. I've just kind of decided as I'm going along what was going to be what color. I'm doing the wellness header in blue, I'm going to do the mood header in yellow, and then for the moods themselves, I'm just going to use the colors I already have with the light yellow and the dark yellow for the better moods, and the light blue and the dark blue for the worst moods. Also added a pop of color to our wellness umbrella as well as our character's shoes, and gave her a little bit of a light blue umbrella as well before highlighting every other line on my habit tracker. Now this is what this looks like when it's empty. Let's go ahead and peek back to May. I'm only about halfway through the month, but you'll be able to see how this is working for me. My mood tracker is a little different over here this month, but otherwise this is set up exactly the same way. So here you have my sleep with the black line, and my energy with the gray line, and then my steps with the red line. And to do these, I am just using a dot marker. So for this setup, I will use the yellow and the blue as well as a black dot marker and do the exact same thing. These dot markers are dual tip, so I just use the fat end to make the dot here on this end, and then I use the thinner end to connect the dots for the line graph. And then for the habit tracker, I just put a black dot whatever day I do that habit. And that's it, y'all. That's how my wellness tracker works. This really has turned out to be my favorite setup for my wellness tracker and habit trackers this year. I started off with this setup in January, and I've come back to it several times. The mood tracker is a little more cheeky and fun with our little moody raindrops over here. If you have any comments or questions about this wellness tracker, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to another spread that I re-added to my setup. This is my meal tracker, and we're going to flip back to May again because I'm not doing that great. So here we are. I've left all these spaces blank for in between these last couple of weeks. I still have half the month to go, trying to do better at filling out this meal log, so we're going to go ahead and set it up again and see if I can build this back up as a habit. I knew going into it last month or this month that this would be a struggle. That's just real life, y'all. We got to figure out what works and what doesn't. This setup is a super simple chart, and it does take up most of the page, so there's really not a whole lot of room around the page or even at the top for artwork. And that's okay, right? We want our journals to look great, but they are primarily function over form. So we're just going to get a little bit in here with some galoshes or gum boots or whatever you call rain boots, as well as an umbrella that is folded up in the lying down position. And then we have the functionality, and this is just a really simple chart. So there are 4 major columns: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. The beginning of each one of those columns has a tinier column so that I can categorize each one of those meals on that particular day in my own abstract way: best, good, poor, or WTF. Now this is me having an internal debate on whether I wanted to put the horizontal lines on those small categorization columns, and obviously the decision to put those lines in won out. Sometimes that decision really is just a time thing, like, do I really want to get out the ruler and make all of these teeny tiny horizontal lines? It does A, look better on the page, and B, help me keep track of what line I'm on. And now it's time to add in some color. So for my categories, I'm going to go ahead and leave best white, good we'll do yellow, poor I'll do dark blue, and then for WTF, which is really the category of why did you eat that, Beth, we'll go ahead and make black for this month. And then to further delineate my lines, I decided to make every other one of these columns have either light blue or light yellow lines. Once all of that was done, I was looking at this page and decided I didn't like that this kind of was a floating end, and I decided I wanted to close it off. So here I'm putting in that vertical line. We're going to clean up those edges with a white gel pen, and then that will be it for this meal tracker. It's super simple and really just meant to get me writing down what I'm eating. Alright, it's time for us to go ahead and move on to the weeklies. Alright, so May was interesting because I gave myself a lot of space, and I do mean I gave myself a lot of space. It was probably a little bit too much space. I've enjoyed playing with it, but for this month I'm quite literally going to rip off the exact same setup that I gave my son for May, and that is to have 2 weeks on one spread. So one on one side, one on the other side, a little bit of artwork in the middle, and we're going to be done with it. Honestly, I'm just craving something super simple. Even when I was setting up Kenny's journal last month in his video, I said, oh, I kind of like this. I might try this. So I'm going to start off with doing some raindrops as my headers for Monday through Sunday down each side. Again, 1 week on the left, 1 week on the right. Then we're going to pop in those horizontal lines. There are 5 dot grid spaces between each one of those days. Each week is going to get its own date headers up in the corner. Each week is also going to get its own mini calendar, and each week is also going to get its own rolling task list. In the middle, I'm going to draw another doodle of a lady just enjoying herself in the rain, jumping over a puddle, doesn't even have the umbrella over her head. Yes, this one came from another Google search, and this is probably a little bit more what I look like. She's a little bit more rotund. And then I'm going to add in the color, and I'm just going to make this left page the blue page, and I'm going to make the right week the yellow week, and we'll do the same thing on the next spread as well. So for the headers, I'm going to go with the more vibrant colors. For the task list, I'm highlighting with the lighter color every other line. Again, I do that for my eyes just so I can delineate between lines a little bit easier. And then we're writing in the dates within the raindrops, and then Monday through Sunday on the very top of each one of those horizontal lines. And there we go. Like I said, super simple. A little bit of space on each side to write in events for the days, a space for a task list for each week. And we're going to go ahead and pop in our structure for the next set of weeks and get going on those as well. Like I said, we're going to set these up exactly the same way. I'm even going to do the blue on the left. For the artwork on this page, instead of one doodle down the middle, I kind of gave each page its own individual one. So we have 2 different ladies, again with their umbrellas. These are really super simple doodles to do, by the way, mainly because you don't have to worry about any facial features, which is always a problem for me when it comes to drawing people. And like I said, we're going to do the color scheme the exact same way. If you pay really close attention, you can tell I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to get a little sloppy with my coloring. But I must have been tired in more ways than one, because this is the moment that I began to realize that my weekly headers were not right. Not quite sure what weeks I thought I was on when I wrote in these 2 weekly headers on this page, but they are clearly not correct. That is okay. We are just going to bring in a little bit of white gel pen to the rescue. So I'm going to blot out the numbers that I do not need to see. We're going to let those fully dry while we do something else, and I'll come back in and put in the appropriate dates in a moment. I also realized right about this time that I had pretty much just been coloring the umbrellas, and so I decided to color this character's pants yellow just to have a pop of color in a different location. And all I have left to do is put in our dates as well as our days of the week on each one of these pages. That'll be a wrap on weeks 25 and 26 for 2023. But how I separate my weeks out is by always put whichever week has the most days in that month. And so June has 4 days in the first week of June, so 4 out of 7 is the majority. We have a few normal weeks, and then the last week of June has got the majority again with 5, so I need a 5th week, and we're just going to go ahead and set this up here. Sometimes I put a playlist on this page, and we're just going to eliminate the playlist this month and put in another week. On my other weeks, I made sure that the page on the left was blue and the one on the right was yellow. For this particular page, I'm going to make this one yellow, and I'm going to regret it because then I'm going to end up with too much yellow across the spread overall. But sometimes we make decisions and they're not necessarily the best aesthetic decisions that we could have made. And the reason that I made that decision is because I wanted this character that I am drawing, who has this flowing hair coming out from underneath her umbrella, to have blonde hair or yellow hair, which I colored that particular color. I just didn't think it all the way through when it came time for my reflection page, which is now going to go on the right. And you know what? I may not love it, but we're gonna stick with it. I'm not gonna change it, because one of the reasons that I like setting up my whole month all in one fell swoop is that I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the month. It is there, ready for me to use. Here in the bottom right corner is our last umbrella holding lady, and next to her I'm actually deviating a little bit more. So normally when I do these setups, I sneak in the name of the playlist somewhere on the cover page. And I didn't do that on the cover page because I had so many lyrics from the song raining down on top of her. So I'm going to stick the name of the playlist or the theme here on the reflection page next to our lady. And then I do have some reflection categories that I have set up, which again are liked, learned, lacked, and longed for. They've pretty much been my standard this year. And there I have put Stand in the Rain. The only thing we have left to do is to put our printable of our cover playlist back on our annual page where we have all 6 for this journal and stick it right there. And yes, this will be the last setup for this journal. So coming soon will be a setup for my next journal to carry me from July to December. Now let's look back at what we've set up for June and our Stand in the Rain theme. As we look back through June, just a reminder that our themes are chosen from my existing Spotify playlists this year. If you want to be a part of choosing those playlists, feel free to subscribe. Those polls go up on my community tab. There's currently a poll up for July as to what playlist we're going to have for my July theme. August I'm going to keep for myself because it is my birthday month, and then September through December will also be voted on by my viewers. If you made it this far, leave me an umbrella emoji down in the comments so that I know you are here, and take a stab at who you think I'm going to name my next journal after. This one being named Chester after Chester Bennington from Linkin Park to go along with our playlist theme. Thank you so much for spending part of your time with me today. I really do enjoy having you here. If you liked this video, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.